Hello and welcome to a new episode of our program In the Hot Seat. Today we're going to be holding an exclusive interview with our guest engineer Ahmed Taha. He's an executive director of the Industrial Modernization Center here in Egypt. He's going to be talking to us about the role of this center, what are the achievements, the possible obstacles, the public versus the private sector, and how at the end we can all work together in supporting those especially who work with the handmade products to be able to resolve our economical problems. Stay tuned. Engineer Ahmed Taha, the Executive Director of IMC, the Industrial Modernization Center in Egypt. Thank you very much for joining us on the Hot Seat program on Nile TV International. Now, tell us a little bit first about what the Industrial Modernization Center is, the role that it does in supporting the Egyptian economy.
In brief, first I would like to welcome you here in the Industrial Modernization Center headquarters. In brief, the IMC was established by an agreement between the EU and the government in Egypt. In year 1999, we got the approval of the House of Parliament, followed by a presidential decree in the year 2000 to approve the establishment of the Industrial Modernization Center to implement the Industrial Modernization Program. The main focus of the program was supporting privately owned small and medium enterprises with the objective of finding a common language between us and Europe. Common language in quality, in conformity, in marketing, in exporting, in production processes, and so on and so forth. So we have been working very hard in that domain. We had very basic criteria for whoever would like to benefit out of our work. One, to be privately owned. Two, at least established for 2 years. Three, got a minimum of 10 full-time labor. And not to exceed a certain number to avoid working with the large companies. And I believe since the actual implementation of the program in the year 2002 until 2010, the IMC have been able to achieve the majority of its objectives. And it was one of the main vehicles that really supported the Egyptian economy, especially in the industrial sector.
Speaking about the role the center does in terms of supporting and providing help for the medium and small businesses, which need a lot of help, because we do know that the bigger businesses, they already are financially established, so it's not a problem for them. How do you finance or help support and choose who to help in terms of the small and medium enterprises?
First, we do not support them financially at all. All our services and work is revolving around technical assistance through very much qualified international and local consultancy firms and consultants, taking into consideration that the majority of the work done over the last 13 years now since establishment, we have been able to deliver more than 100,000 services to an average of 13,000 enterprises and industries. The majority of that, almost 80% of that, was in the area of small, and the rest was between medium and large factories. The support starts by doing a gap analysis for the company, going through qualified consultants, look into different aspects of the business and identifying where could they develop better, where they can implement the methods of improving their businesses to be competitive and increase their competitive advantage in all the business aspects, to be able to end up with a product that is simply can penetrate the European market. And this is the main objective of our work. We have to have common language, as I said earlier. Common language here, I mean in the production, in the kind of certification, conformity, and so on and so forth, just to be able to open the Egyptian market for EU products and vice versa.
And speaking of technical assistance, how do you put your criteria on what means of mechanism do you work? Is there a role model that you follow here in Egypt that could easily be applied in terms of the regulations and the rules, or how does the whole mechanism work?
We have actually acquired at the very beginning the business model of the European Union, and we have started following their footsteps into that. Knowing that the majority of our companies are family businesses, so we started trying to educate them what does it mean to have a governance model. You cannot just keep running the business the way you are running a small grocery or a small shop. You have to think about financial statements, cash flow, the kind of inventory levels, raw materials. There is a lot of aspects that affects a lot of the companies. That's why when we had the revolution in the 25th of Jan 2011, a lot of companies suffered and they went into financial crisis because they never had a solid financial model to follow. They were running it, as I mentioned earlier, like a bigger grocery shop. And accordingly, we started very heavily through our teams and the qualified consultants in the market to assist them. But the problem is funding their activities, especially working capital, need a lot of support into that. And we have been working heavily now with more than one entity to identify non-banking solutions for them through investment houses and through different mechanisms. I believe within the next couple of weeks we should reach a final agreement on a model that will be the first time to be implemented in Egypt to support these companies.
Well, since you've mentioned the problems that were discovered after the 25th of January revolution, of course, came again later on the 30th of June revolution, how do you view the current Egyptian economic status during the past 5 years? What can you tell us about the positive steps that have been taken towards resolving its many different problems?
Well, there was many initiatives to assist the companies because for sure it's not only what happened in Egypt that affects us, because at the end of the day we are producing the majority of our products for export, and we have been badly affected. For example, the building material sector was badly affected with what's happening in Libya and in Iraq, because these two were major markets for their products. And they have been suffering big time, actually. One of the things we have been working on is just trying to come out with, as I said, non-traditional financial schemes, non-banking financial schemes, because at the end of the day, a company or a factory that is not performing very well due to financial reasons, or they got bankruptcy or whatever, they need a subsidized rate for the money they need and the finance they would like to acquire. The problem is the banking sector would always lend them between 16 to 18%, which is not viable for their business at all. So the solution we are trying to find now is something between 9 to 10, maximum 11%. It makes a hell of a difference to work into that. Big difference actually to work with non-financial, non-traditional banking systems.
Let's talk a little bit more about Creative Egypt. We know that it's one of the programs that Center provides, and it also gained a large attention by the Egyptian Prime Minister Ibrahim Mahlab. Tell us the details about what is Creative Egypt.
Well, I think you noticed my smile. This is a baby that I really dreamt always of. We have been working in the domain of micro enterprises and small handmade products since the start of 2005, until we had a very big event in 2010 known as Cairo Forum, which was a very successful event. Unfortunately, after the events of Jan 2011, Things were very frozen here in the Industrial Modernization Center. Things were very slow down. Fortunately, when I came to the office in August 2013, we have decided to sit together as a management team, look into our history, because we need to build into it, and look about our future. Where exactly do we need to work? So we started setting a new vision, mission, objectives, strategies, and so on and so forth. One of these strategies were depending very much on micro enterprises, because no country would ever win or reach anywhere without focusing on the micro enterprises, which the majority of people working on. So we have decided to work heavily into these domains. Our teams went to all over Egypt, identified on the Egyptian map 61 different clusters, industrial, ethnic. We have worked with 47 of them very extensively from 2013 until early 2015. Then we have been dreaming to have our own outlet, something like 12 meters. Wow, that would be great, let's do it. Until we decided to test the market. We took 100 square meters in one of the fairs in June 2014, just to measure the impact and how people would see these products. Actually, the results was very good. That encouraged us to go ahead and expand it a bit. And we expanded by going into another bigger fair in February 2015, 1,600 square meters, 47 clusters displaying their products all over that fair in the convention center in Nasser City. We were dreaming that our minister, Mr. Munir Fakhri Abdul Noor, Minister of Industry, will give us the honor of opening. Fortunately, 4 days exhibition, he came 3 times. And in the last day, on Sunday, the 8th of February 2015, he was joined by His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Engineer Mahlab. As soon as he went in, he looked at Mr. Munir and said, well, let's give them a full-time outlet, because I don't believe that this outlet will be, or this seasonal exhibitions will be enough to display that. And he nominated Omar Effendi Ahmed Orabi in Mohandesin. 5 months later, on the 8th of July, we were able to open. But between February and early June, it was a negotiation phase with the holding company that is responsible about Omar Effendi itself. We've received the branch on the 11th of June. 28 days later, the Prime Minister gave us the honor of opening the outlet. I cannot tell you more than 16,000 people are displaying their products. Again, the 47 clusters representing 17 different governorates. And this is only the ground floor. Mid-September, inshallah, we will open the first floor as well. By opening the first floor, we will reach the number of 20,000 to 22,000 exhibitors, almost 50 to 55 clusters, as well as around 20 governorates will be displaying that. The beauty about that, and why we as management of the Industrial Modernization Center decided to focus into it, low cost of creating a job between £500 to £1,500. If you compare it to the industry, it's between 150,000 to 200,000 per single job opportunity because of the investment associated to it. There is no working hour. You can just pray al-Fajr and just start working. You can work 20 hours, whatever hours. You don't have to leave home, because the majority of these trades and these products are handmade at home. Can have women, can have people with special needs. Anyone can work into that domain.
That's why I would want to ask you, sir, because also if we look at very successful economies around the world, like China and India, for instance, they're Their economy is basically built on handmade products, whatever they are. Here in Egypt, what are the obstacles that are facing these people, especially that they have certain criteria, whether they don't have educational degrees, possibly whatever sectors of the society they live in, but they all have something in common, that they can produce. Producing in mass production also helps to improve the entire country's economy. To change the ideologies of people's mentalities here in Egypt, and particularly we're talking about the systematic bureaucracy of the public sector, how can it support the economy and be able to act positively, helping this large sector of the society?
Let me divide your question, if you don't mind, to multiple phases. The first phase, if we're talking about the economy and the support of the economy. Let's imagine that I have started producing a certain product, like this pot, for example. I started selling it. Accordingly, I got some money. I can go around into the shops. I can start buying clothes for my kids, food, and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, the economic cycle around me as an individual working in this product already is moving to a certain extent. 16,000 people, if you multiply that by 3 to 4, which is the average number of people in each family, multiply that, you do the math and tell me how many people will be benefiting out of it. On the other hand, if we are looking at the product and the word mass production, there is no mass production in handicrafts, but there is mass population working in producing handicrafts. So this is the target we are looking at. We have our own plan of activities, which is not announced to the people exhibiting in our outlet in Mohandesin Creative Egypt. One of which is job creation, the second is investment, and finally transforming informal sector to formal sector. So who displays in Creative Egypt? Two main categories. Whether you are individual that got a tax card and commercial registration, this is a prerequisite if you would like to display your products within our outlet. Secondly, you are a member of a recognized and known and registered association. So both are formal, and accordingly you will be able to formalize one way or another. You need to educate people that you don't have to be worried about the government, because at the end of the day, if you are legal, you can have some more facilitation, one of which getting our services for free, especially in the area related to design, in the area related on quality control, as well as marketing plus exporting.
Now, let's talk about the public versus the private sector in terms of, supporting the economy of Egypt. Again, many people or a large sector of the society in Egypt would go for a public sector job for its guarantee, for its accessible opportunity, for its durability, for many reasons. How can people seek opportunities in the private sector through your center? To raise, what do you do to raise awareness for these people so that you can attract them? Because very rarely would this happen unless somebody tells somebody who has been working through your center.
Let me tell you a little story. I was heading the Industrial Training Council, which is responsible about training individuals and inserting them in different private sector jobs based on the trades and profession they have been trained on for 4 years. The culture is tough, and we have been grown up that certificate is important, and the handcraft and working by hand in a factory or something is not respectable. I remember a quote by one of the previous ministers who said, definitely we need a carpenter, we need a plumber, but you will never accept him as your daughter's husband, and you will never invite him for a table for lunch or dinner, which is perfectly true, because we look at the kind of jobs very low. So we need to start working into that. We have succeeded to let the people think, do not work in a factory. If you don't want to work in a factory, why don't you be your own entrepreneur own your own business and display your products in Creative Egypt, this is only one outlet. It will increase and be replicated one by one.
Yes, allow me to interrupt you here again. When you said that a change of mentality needs to take place here in Egypt, and you absolutely are correct in terms of how important certificates are, regardless if you're going to be working or just staying home after you receive your certificate. But what I'm trying to say here is that for this to be successfully true, there needs to be some kind of training centers, authorized training centers, or authorized diplomas that either it could work through your center, or you can promise them with job opportunities or general opportunities later on. Again, paper, since paper is very important, why can't you try to sort of cooperate with the Ministry of Higher Education or something concerning education that could turn it into a formal legal way with certification?
Actually, this is the role of the Industrial Training Council, and this is why they have been merged into the new Ministry of Technical Education and Training, headed by Dr. Mohammed Youssef. And they have a very interesting plan in the area of certification, because they would like to have a parallel path to the normal education we have in Egypt in the technical area, up to a technical PhD, if someone would like to obtain such a degree. Meanwhile, they are working with a number of pre-certified and accredited training centers based on a very well-known methodology, which is called the SQA, the Scotch Qualification Authority in Scotland. These curricula they are working and training their individuals on is based into that and certified by the Scotch Qualification Authority as well as the Egyptian authorities. That will end up with a qualified trained labor, but you will always face convincing that labor to be trained and work afterwards in a factory. We have in our culture that whoever owns a factory give us peanuts and we are getting nothing, and he's earning the whole money, which is not the case in most of the cases. So we are trying to give them a parallel channel, which is be an entrepreneur, open your own business, and you will find a channel to earn money and live a decent life.
Yes. Now, if we're talking about also if there are possible organizations that are working under the umbrella of the Industrial Modernization Center, and if so, how is it managed administratively to ensure the success of or reaching the goals and the targets of your programs?
Actually, the only organization that was born underneath the Industrial Modernization Center was Creative Egypt as a brand name, as an outlet. But with the other organizations like the Industrial Training Council, like NQI, the National Quality Institute, like many others under our ministry, we have very strong working relation with all of them to the extent that we coordinate all our activities. Because, for example, if we're looking at standards and conformity and certification, we have to work with Dr. Hassan Al-Magid, who is heading the National Standardization Authority. If we are looking about supporting our industries and small ones in obtaining the registration, industry registration, or even obtaining land, we work very extensively with Engineer Ismail Gaber, Head of Industrial Development Authority, and so on and so forth. So it's a matter of coordination. The beauty about this team working under the ministry now is we speak the same language for a change.
Speaking the same language, just crossed my mind when you said that how competitive it would be, you know, between Egypt and European countries in terms of such industries. Where does Egypt stand among the region, possibly among the entire European area as well?
Well, for the Egyptian exports to the EU, we are ranked between 5 and 7. Although we have been ranked before the revolution in 2011 between 3 and 4. But we are working into that very extensively. If again I talk about the area I'm focusing on, which is micro, we are planning to have 3 exhibitions in Europe between November and December 2015, one in Berlin, one in Milano, and a third one in Barcelona, inshallah. So we are trying to invade them with our products.
Engineer Ahmed Taha, the Executive Director of the Industrial Modernization Center, thank you very much for joining us on our program here in The Hot Seat.
Thank you.